It's been over 30, no, it's coming up on 30 days, me being here in Johannesburg, South Africa. And I wanted to do a 30-day check in. What has been going on? What have I been getting adjusted to? And quite frankly, it's not even official 30 days, but the way this week has been going, I said, let me get this video down now that I have some content that I can talk about before some other things happen. So I'm excited to share. If you're new to the channel, welcome. My name is Ashley. On my channel, Ashley in Africa, I talk about my experience moving, living, and doing business as an entrepreneur here on the continent of Africa. I am currently living in Johannesburg, South Africa. This is my second country since moving to the continent in 2020, where I first lived in Dar es Salaam, Tanzania for about 2 years. I am also the creator of the Africa Investors Academy, a community of entrepreneurs, aspiring entrepreneurs, and investors who are growing their businesses, building their businesses, and investing in projects and opportunities here on the continent of Africa. So, if that sounds interesting to you, please be sure to subscribe to the channel and hit that like button. And so in this video, I'm going to talk about the first 30 days of me living here in Johannesburg, South Africa. And a little bit of backstory. Last night, the weather has just been crazy. And that's one of the things I want to talk about, the weather. It has been cold, like sweatshirt cold, to heat wave hot, to lightning storm, to the point where last night or yesterday afternoon, lightning struck either our block, our house, or something, but it knocked out the Wi-Fi and it also knocked out the cable box. So the kids are about to be chaotic during the weekend initially, right? They were okay yesterday. But yeah, so that happened. And it's interesting because I wasn't prepared for that. I mean, I knew that the weather was like different than the tropical weather of Dar es Salaam, Tanzania, but just the range of the weather in the last 30 days has been unexpected, to say the least. So having the raincoats out, the fleeces, the denim jackets, it's just not something that, like, those used to live in a suitcase in the closet. But luckily I had them, so the girls have been able to go to school, and be unaffected by the change in weather. And they're not complaining. It's me. It's really me, right? They are fine. They're unbothered. So that has been an interesting experience. However, the owner of the home we're staying in has been so helpful and just accommodating and wanting to make sure everything is perfect 24/7. So I've really valued that. And I will say one of the things that I wish I would have maybe prepared better for was the fact that it might take a little longer to find a place than expected. So that's the next thing that I'll talk about. So coming here and relocating, I had been here. I had been on real estate tours. I had worked with agents and looked at different places, different neighborhoods. Well, I think this neighborhood where I am now was never a neighborhood that I was considering because I hadn't yet found the school for the girls that I wanted to send them to. So their school is great. I love it. I love the values, the mission, the academic structure. I love the school. Thus, I need to find something in this neighborhood that allows us to get to their school easily. And so it's just taken a bit of an adjustment to find someone that has expertise in this area that I enjoy working with. That part, because I have met some agents that work in this area, but we just don't vibe, and it's got to be a vibe, like it's mandatory. So that part has been a little bit interesting, a bit of an adjustment. We were hoping to sign the lease on a place a few days ago, and because of just differences, I think, in the way that we were communicating, our level of expectation, the landlord and I were not able to come to an agreement that felt comfortable for both of us. And that was unfortunate because I was preparing to move out like 4 days, into signing the lease. And so we've thus had to shift our plan. But, me, I am a resourceful, I am flexible, I am, always reminding myself that things are working out in my favor. So we've ultimately been able to figure that out, give myself more time to be able to find something, that we love. So thank God for being resourceful, having critical thinking, and being somebody who is really quick and patient, right? Like the patience is a big part of that. And, um, if you are looking to do this and move abroad, really anywhere, but I can only speak for the continent of Africa, specifically Tanzania and South Africa, your patience is going to be tested and strengthened if you allow it, right? I think, Tanzania was such a easeful experience. I was in a hotel for 1 week. I then moved into my house, and immediately in my house, that same week or two, I was able to receive deliveries for appliances, mattresses, and the like. A couple weeks later, got, custom furniture. So everything was really, really moved very well. I will say that I had a bit more support at the time, with my family that had traveled with us. And then, just financially, because I didn't tell a whole lot of people what I was doing. So, we were supported in that way. And I think this move, the difference is, I developed a level of comfort in Tanzania. And while, America, when I made that move to Tanzania, I was extremely uncomfortable in America at that time. So anything was better than what I was experiencing in America. So to have that level of comfort, establish that level of ease and lifestyle in Tanzania, I think that kind of anxiousness that I developed, months before making this move to now, it's definitely riling up, and I'm able to identify it. I'm able to talk through it, process it, all of those things. But the one thing that I will say is the opportunity to really impart that patience and affirming that everything is working out in my favor, even with the disruption, even with, the kind of the inconveniences. um it still feels good, and I'm still so grateful that I have that toolkit of things to be able to apply when things go awry, because they're going to go awry, especially when you are doing this, with children. I think when you're doing it solo, probably happens too, but when you're doing it with children, honey, you better be prepared. And what I love so much about my girls is they are just so happy and they have such a sense of security that they're fine. Like, they're not even bothered, right? Like, I talk to them and I communicate with them about like what's happening, what changes we're going through, or what we can expect, in the next week or the next month or the next 3 months. And so my oldest, really, I mean, she's the one who understands the most. And then my youngest, she's just happy as long as she has her food, her snacks, whatever she wants. Like, she's fine. And they're good. I think one of the main things that was so important was getting them into school so they could have some normalcy and they could start building community, and they could start, you know having a schedule and something to look forward to every day. And so that goal was accomplished, and checked off of the box. So that's been that's been really good, having them in school. And also, again, I think a bit of a bumpy ride, but nothing that wasn't able to be managed. The next thing I want to talk about is banking. And so that is probably what held us up the most. Not having banked in Tanzania, because I used mobile money, which was accepted everywhere, retail, you know, drivers, hospitality. Like, you could use mobile money everywhere. So all I would do was transfer money from my US bank account to my phone to be able to pay for things. I never needed a bank account. Here in South Africa, you need a bank account if you're planning to be a long-term resident. And um, you can establish it online, but it's so important to kind of visit the bank so you can understand the different bank accounts as a foreigner, as a non-resident, or as a resident, to know like what accounts you have to set up to be able to receive US dollar and spend South African rand, or as a business to be able to receive South African rand and spend South African rand, right? Or receive South African rand and transfer to US dollar. Um, and all of those accounts, those stipulations are different because, honey, if you try to send yourself some money and you've created the wrong bank account, they're gonna hold your money for a long time. Like, I don't know how long, but a long time, long enough. So that banking process was really interesting. Luckily, my business partner set up our business and our bank account like over a year ago. So I had that banking relationship, but I hadn't been using it. So I didn't have any idea of how important it was once I got in country. Everybody accepts payments through their bank. Like everybody is expecting you to make that bank transfer. It's not as much of a cash society. It still is a cash society in certain communities. I will say, likely those that are a little on the lower income earning side, but even those folks still have bank accounts. So it's interesting. I mean, this is a major metropolitan city. So people that are living in the metropolitan of Johannesburg, they have to pay bills. They have to operate in the society that is not necessarily a cash forward society. There is, tap and pay. There's Apple Pay. There's tap and go. So there is some sense of mobile banking, but it's less popular. People would rather you give them cash or you transfer it into their bank account. And so, not knowing how to actually operate the bank account, having set up the proper bank account to transfer funds to, that was also causing a bit of delay in getting the girls into school. And then when you're visiting the banks, you best prepare for some time, a couple hours. There is no pop in, pop out. I will say that certain branches are also a lot more popular. You know, actually, like ideally so, depending on where you go. So the branch that I bank with, or the bank that I bank with, FMB, they their bank in Santon is just like ridiculously packed all the time. But where I'm living is a bit closer to another location that I can pop into. And when I went there the other day, I was in and out in 15 minutes versus going to the Santon bank for the same service. And it took me probably about 2 hours. So that was something that I did, and I'm glad I did it. I'm familiar, got set up on online banking. It's a very innovative platform, honestly. You can do so many things. You can, pay directly to vendors. You can do a lot of things. I'm still learning the platform, but FNB seems to be one of the most popular, thriving banks here in South Africa. Um, so that's the bank that I'm banking with, not endorsing them by any means, just offering some information. Is this helpful? I hope so. If so, please be sure to like the video and share it with someone who would also find value in it as well. Um, I'm gonna address the men because I know the ladies want to know. And I know the men want to know what my experience has been like. So stay till the end, and I'm going to talk about what it's been like in the single woman world of dating, I guess. Not really dating, but just meeting, right? Like meeting men. I want to say eligible because I don't really know what's what, but stay to the end and I'll talk about it. um the next thing is help. So I talk a lot about getting house help and valuing house help, and being grateful for house help as a luxury that is not available to the majority of mothers in America. And I was advised to get some house help sooner than later. And I really didn't think about it because I was still in our temporary homestay. And I was just thinking, like, oh, I'll do that when we get set up. And, I was advised, hey, you probably want to look into it. I don't know if I was being grouchy or if he could tell that I was a little bit more on the snappy side, but I was grateful for the suggestion because it is such a important part of working, being a mom who works, being someone who is getting acclimated and having that level of support, especially when you're parenting solo. And so our helper, who has been fantastic, I would advise people to ask for references. That's how you find help. Luckily, I was forwarded on a really reliable resource, and for the people that I work with in the community of the Africa Investors Academy, and also those that schedule one-on-one calls with me that have an interest, those are some of the resources that I will share. When I identify that, one, you're absolutely serious about making this move, and two, you are taking the actionable steps to, make it happen, i.e., get a passport, i.e., book your discovery trip, and so forth and so on. And so, because there is a cultural difference, I think we all have to keep in mind that there may be some bumps in the road in the beginning. And with us, there definitely was, right? Understanding the rates, understanding the expectations, understanding the hours. It wasn't the same as it was for me in Tanzania, where the expectation is, you know, I would say more of a longer term schedule. There is live in and come and go. And yeah, there it's different, right? I think there was an expectation when I was in Dar that I'd have somebody that would go to the market. And I think here that is also an option. It's just in how you do it. Right. So setting those expectations early, being mindful and sharing, hey, I noticed this happened, or I noticed we said this. Can you help me understand what you were thinking? There's going to be a cultural difference, and you have to identify that early on, be willing to have that uncomfortable conversation and set those expectations for success, right? There is a little bit of training that goes into this process as well. But luckily, our helper has been great. She's great with the girls. She's been cooking us pop and stew and shawarma and, like, you know, traditional South African food. I told her, dada, and we call her shangazi, which is Swahili for auntie, but um, we call her that just because that's what the girls are used to calling our last helper. But I told her, she was like, oh, you can train me on how to cook things the way you love. I'm like, we just like to eat. So cook us what you like to cook, because we like food. And the meals have been amazing. The girls love it. And it's so interesting because there's so many similarities to, I'd say, like African American food. Like, she made this kind of lasagna dish, but it wasn't super tomatoey. It was kind of like a mac and cheese pasta with beef. It was good. It was so good. And then she made some pop and stew, chicken stew, which is, pop is like ugali. So Penelope is like, ooh, I want some ugali. Um, it actually tastes a bit like hardened grits, but I just can't. It's different. Obviously, it's maize meal. Definitely very starchy. So something I would have maybe once a week, but the girls, they love it. And oh, some shawarma, which was amazing. And the food, like the seasonings, is very familiar to just like how we are resourceful and how we cook, in the US, with flavorful like spices and savory spices. Um, yeah, so not much different than the US food, but definitely adjustment from Tanzania, and like traditional Swahili food. But it's been beautiful to have that experience and recognize, like, wow, this is similar to the flavors that I'm used to having, or I was used to having in my native country of the US. So yeah, she's been great. She's been great. Is this helpful? Please be sure to like the video. So the last thing that I'll address about, being here the last 30 days, I will say the men are very, as I said before, very willing to say hello, wherever you go. So that's been cute and fun. I joined a gym. Well, I haven't officially joined, but I found a gym that's close to my home that I love, that has like amazing classes, and um yeah, like had some gentlemen say hello and like even pop up in my class where I was, try to see if I'm going to be back the following day. So that was cute. There's a cute little like coffee shop at the gym as well. So you can kind of sit there and like people have come and said hello and just just been willing to say hello, willing to compliment. I do notice that glam is definitely a thing here. The ladies of South Africa love to get glammed, and some of my sissies at the gym be super glammed up. That is not me. So it's always shocking when I'm coming out of the workout and I'm sweaty and my face is red and my hair is frizzy, that I get approached. I think women, we always are like blown away by that. But there's definitely an appreciation for, natural beauty. I've gone to like the grocery store and been approached by someone who was just so gentle and kind and loving. And like loving is a bit extreme, but I think I can kind of like feel that energy where they're just like, okay, like I just want to say hello. And wouldn't necessarily ask for my number outright, but just want to get to know a little bit about me. And that's just been an interesting experience, to have like everywhere I go, coffee shops, grocery stores, even like the market. So, single ladies, if you're wondering, the men are here and they're, they seem to be very, very nice, like very respectful. Again, I know you don't ever necessarily get that in the first approach, but from everyone, but so far, no complaints. So that's been our first 30 days, honestly. Like I mentioned, with a couple of the different weather changes and weather differences and Wi-Fi going out, not having anything to do with the infrastructure of South Africa, but just like random occurrences. I think that is also a reminder that I think this weekend the girls and I will get out. Until the last couple weekends, I don't think we've been out as much because I just been so heads down trying to find a place. So now that we are settled and now we know what our next like 6 months is going to look like, um, at minimum, we're like, okay, let's get out this weekend. And so everything happens as it's supposed to happen. Thank God. So I'm so grateful. I think I'll do a separate video on the banking because I get a lot of questions about that as well. So if you found this video helpful and you enjoyed it, please be sure to like it and share it with someone who would find value in it as well. And be sure to visit my website, ashleyinafrica.com, to get updates and insights on what we're doing in the Africa Investors Academy. You can find the link below, and I'll also pin a comment so you can easily access it as well. So until the next video, I'll see you soon.